Umar bin Khattab became the second Khalifa of Muslim at one of the most critical moments in history. At that very time, the young state of Medina, barely a few years old, was facing not one but two superpowers, the Roman Empire, the Persian Empire. Number one, Roman Empire, which had ruled as the world's greatest power for over a 10th century periods. Number two, Persian Empire. They had dominated as the second great power for nearly 8 centuries, and now both superpowers were at war with Muslim, the young state of Medina. When Umar assumed leadership, one Muslim army under Khalid bin Walid was battling the Romans, while another smaller force faced the Persians. Umar's greater concern was the Persian front, for it lacked a commander of Khalid's caliber. Realizing the strategic risk, Umar began rallying a new army to reinforce the Muslim in Persia. But here came a shocking problem. From the pulpit of Masjid al-Nabi, Umar's voice rang out like a war horn. O people, rise for the cause of Allah. Who will stand against the fire of Kisra? But to his shock, silence. Not a single man moved. Not because they feared that these were warriors seasoned by years of battle, but because their hearts clung to one man's name, Khalid bin Walid. Without him, they thought victory was impossible. Umar's eyes narrowed. This was more dangerous than any sword. He realized Muslims had begun placing their trust in Khalid rather than Allah. 3 days passed. Umar returned to the mosque, his voice now a thunderclap. By Allah, whoever believes victory lies with Khalid alone has mistaken the truth. Allah grants victory to whom He wills. Khalid is but a servant of Allah. His word struck like an arrow. A man named Abu Bakr stood up. Amirul Mu'mineen, I will go. I will fight in the path of Allah. It was the spark the crowd needed. Men began to rise one after another until 1,000 stood ready. Umar placed the banner in Abu Bakr's hand. Abu Bakr was a normal person. He was not a Sahabi. Under Abu Bakr's leadership, they rode east towards an empire that had stood unbroken for 800 years. But while these armies marched into Persian Empire far to the north in the lands of the Romans, Khalid bin Walid was delivering a decisive blow. Khalid's eyes were set on one prize, Damascus, Damashq. With precision and speed, he gathered his army, tightened their ranks, and marched north toward the great Roman stronghold, Damascus. Before the siege of Damascus, the reason Hazrat Umar bin Khattab prioritized it as one of the first major targets was both strategic and symbolic. It wasn't just about conquering a city. It was about opening the gateway to the rest of Syria and the Byzantine-controlled region. There were several key reasons behind this decision. Number 1. Damascus was like the control tower of Byzantine Syria. It sat at a key junction of trade and military routes between Arabia, Palestine, and Mediterranean coast. Whoever controlled Damascus could easily move armies north or south to Jerusalem. Number 2. Byzantine stronghold. It was one of the strongest Byzantine garrison in Syria, meaning if Muslims ignore it, it could be used as a base to launch counterattacks on Muslim position in the newly captured areas like Busra. Number 3. Economic hub. Damascus was a wealthy trade center famous for its market, skilled craftsmen, and fertile agricultural lands nearby. Controlling it meant the Muslim could financially sustain future campaigns. Number 4. Psychological impact. Taking Damascus early would break the morale of the Byzantine troop in the rest of Syria. It was like removing the keystone of a bridge. The rest of the structure would be weakened. Number 5. Securing supply lines. Umar and his commanders knew that if they pushed deeper into Syria without neutralizing Damascus, their near supply lines would also be at risk. Number 6. Winter shelter for the army. Damascus had resources, fortification, and shelter which were valuable for Muslim armies moving north, where winter conditions could be harsher. So, Hazrat Umar targeted Damascus first because it was the heart of Syria. Once Damascus fell, the Muslim armies could move freely towards Homs, Amasa, Aleppo, etc. without worrying about a powerful Byzantine force at their back. With the blessing of Khalifas Khalid bin Walid prepared for one of the most important campaigns of the early Muslim conquest. Khalid led his forces north through the scorching desert. Days blurred into night under the relentless sun, but his army moved like a single creature, sustained by faith and the promise of victory. Khalid was a great commander. He never lost any battle in his entire career. Khalid's mind worked like a chess master, calculating every move. He knew Damascus would be heavily fortified, high walls, strong gates, and a garrison of elite Byzantine troops under the command of Thomas, the emperor's own relative. By late spring, the Muslim forces surrounded Damascus, cutting off all supply lines. The siege began with the relentless pressure. Archer rained arrows from a distance, while engineers constructed makeshift siege equipment. Khalid himself led daring night raid to test the city's weakness, striking and vanishing before the Byzantines could regroup. Inside Damascus, fear spread like wildfire. The people whispered about the Muslims encamped outside their gates. Meanwhile, far to the east in Persia, the 1,000 soldiers sent by Hazrat Umar reached the Muslims' army under Abu Ubaid's leadership in Persia. Abu Ubaid looked across the Euphrates and saw the Muslim army on one side and the massive Persian army on the other side. Before this day, the Muslim had never crossed a bridge. There was a bridge between two armies which are separating both armies, because doing so meant putting themselves in a trap with no easy retreat. The Muslim army doesn't want to cross the bridge, but Abu Ubaid made the fateful decision that would change the course of the battle. He ordered the Muslim army to cross the bridge and meet the Persian army after the bridge. In the end, the Muslim army, about 9,000, crossed the river and the battle began. When Abu Ubaid ordered his army to charge the Persian army, the Muslims encountered something they had never seen before. War elephant. The sight terrified many of the soldiers. Instead of advancing, some began to retreat in fear. Sensing the panic, the Persian general ordered a full-scale attack. The Persians struck fiercely and many Muslims were murdered. One of the elements even knocked Abu Ubaid from his horse, then stepped on his chest, crushing him to death. This was the first time in history that a Muslim commander was murdered in battle. When the Muslim soldiers saw their leader fell, their morale collapsed and they began to withdraw towards the bridge. But upon reaching it, they discovered it had been destroyed either by the Persian or, some accounts suggest, by a Muslim on Abu Ubaid's earlier order to prevent retreat. With no way to escape, many Muslims leaped into the river in desperation. At this moment, another commander, Musanna, fought with great courage against the Persian and ordered the Muslims to repair the bridge. Thanks to his bravery and leadership, around 3,000 Muslims managed to cross back to safety. Out of roughly 9,000 Muslim soldiers, about 6,000 were murdered, including Abu Ubaid himself, who was killed by an elephant in battle. This was one of the rare but significant defeats for the Muslim in the early conquests. Back at the wall of Damascus, Khalid shifted his tactics. Knowing the Byzantine expected a frontal assault, he placed his army at the eastern gate while secretly preparing his elite army for a surprise strike at the western side. One moonless night, Khalid's horsemen rode silently along hidden paths guided by Arab local allies who knew the terrain. Before dawn, they breached the defenses. Khalid and his army went secretly inside and opened the gates for the Muslim army. Khalid bin Walid had positioned his finest general at every main gate of the city, one of whom was Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah. A large portion of the army had already entered the fortress from the one side and began capturing the eastern section. However, the city's Roman commander was stationed on the opposite side. When he realized that he had no other option left, that the Muslim had breached the fortress and would soon take the entire city, he quickly sent a letter to Abu Ubaidah, one of the senior Muslim commanders, stating, "I am ready to surrender the city to the Muslim, but on one condition: no spoils of war, male ghanimat, will be taken." At this time, Abu Ubaidah was unaware that Khalid bin Walid and his soldier were just about to fully conquer Damascus by force. Believing it to be the best course to avoid further bloodshed, he accepted the Roman general's surrender on those terms. A short while later, Khalid bin Walid learned of Abu Ubaida's decision. If Khalid had wished, he could have rejected the agreement and taken Damascus by the sword, claiming all the war spoils. But in a remarkable show of unity and discipline, Khalid honored Abu Ubaida's agreement and ordered his troop to pull back. And so Damascus, the powerful city of the region at that time, came under the control of Khalifa Hazrat Umar, not through plunder, no, but through honor and a bending promise. Khalid led the Muslim army to another victory, but the forces in Persia suffered a bad defeat. In Medina, the air was thick with anticipation. Messengers rode in from all corners of the expanding caliphate. One rider covered in dust from the long road burst into the city with a cry, Damascus has fallen, the jewel of Syria. The mighty stronghold Byzantine power had surrendered to the Muslims under Khalid bin Walid's masterful command. The street of Medina buzzed with celebration. People embraced, praising Allah, their voices echoing with joy. There was no ordinary city. Damascus was a gateway, a prize that opened the path to all of Syria. But just as the people began to settle, another rider arrived, this one with a face as pale as the desert moon. His words cut through the joy like a blade. We have lost in Persia. The army sent eastward facing the powerful Persian army had suffered a setback. It was a bitter reminder that while one front brought glory, another demanded sacrifice. In that moment, Khalifa Umar stood firm. His gaze shifted between the two messengers, one bringing news of victory, the other of loss. Victory in Damascus proved the strength of their faith and strategy, but the defeat in Persia was a warning. The path ahead would be a testing of patience. Many people began to believe, almost superstitiously, that Muslims couldn't win wars without Khalid. This deepened the public admiration and reliance on him, turning his name into a kind of battle guarantee in the minds of the people. This was very alarming for Khalifa Umar. And so the dust of Damascus settled. The city had fallen, the gate had opened, and the banner of Islam flew high over one of the greatest strongholds, Byzantine. But amid the celebration, whisper began to spread that the Rashidun Khalifa might its victories. Its unstoppable charge was because of one man, Khalid bin Walid, the sword of Allah, the commander who had never tasted defeat. For the soldier, it was a source of pride, but for the politics of Medina, it was becoming a storm. What happened next would shake the Muslim army to its core. The removal of Khalid right before the decisive battle in history, Yarmouk. In the next episode, you will witness how Khalid was removed, why he was removed, and the entire history of the Battle of Yarmouk. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thought.